Hello and welcome to this video. Today I'm going to unbox the Sophie and Toffee August Elves Box. Now, while opening my box for the first time, I realized I missed a booklet, which shouldn't be too much of a problem, but it's still sad. So let's look what we got inside and hope that I got every item that we should be getting in this box. And first we have this clear sticky film that I suppose will be the backing for pouring our silicone. And then we have this really nice embed sheet, and the stickers are actually kind of iridescent, rainbowy on one side, but you really can't see that because it's on this foil thing, on this like backing. And there's some pretty cute designs there. And then we have this shaker film, which actually has the outlines slightly marked of the shakers we are getting in this box, which is really helpful. Then we have those really cool shaped plastic pieces, which we will use as a border for pouring the silicone in. And next up we have these colors in red, blue, yellow and white. And I think these are for coloring the silicone. And then we have the most important part, the silicone. And on the bottom it says this is food safe, odorless and no bubbles, which I really hope it is. And this says is 1:1 ratio, and on the bottom they actually say to let it sit for at least 1 to 2 hours, best overnight. So if it's that quick curing, that would be really cool. And lastly we have our acrylic mold blank. First up we have this Sakura shaker blank, and this has a nice etching inside, and you can see where they put the two parts of the acrylic together, which is really interesting, I find. And I hope they put it well enough together so that we can't see the fusion lines between the two acrylic pieces when we are making the mold later on. So I know this is the dongle of a wind chime because I saw their Instagram posts, and all of the acrylic blanks come with at least one side of like clear protection film, and some of them have this blue protection film on the other side too. Then we have, I think this is supposed to be a lucky charm, and this also has etching. And I've seen these creatures before, but I have no clues what they are. And then we have this human, which has some pretty big dents, scratches and chips on it, which will totally show later on when we make the mold out of it, which I think is really sad, and I suppose it's because they put all of the charms inside this one bag instead of separating them so they could scratch each other. And then we have this mountain, which also has some etching, but sadly that is also really scratched. And lastly we have the top of the wind chime, which is also a shaker. And that is hopefully everything we are supposed to get in this box beside the booklet. So in preparation for making the mold, I putting the acrylic blanks inside the plastic cases, and I find it really sad that because of the shapes, some of the stuff we got really doesn't fit in some of the plastics. So I had to kind of Tetris my way around into placing them how I wanted them to. Next up I'm cutting the sticky sheet to size, and I keep the other side for later. And then I carefully and thoroughly place the plastic frames on the sticky sheet with the broad side down so there's more contact. And then I remove the protective sheet from the bottom of all the charms and place them down the way I want to, before I lastly remove the blue protective film. Now, since this is 1:1 silicone, I'm measuring it out by weight, which should also work, and I don't really know how much goes into which mold, so I'm just guesstimating, and for this first mix I'm using 120 grams of silicone in total. And I try to pre-colored white, but the white was really chunky and dry, so I just tried to make it like an orange color, and the same happened with the red and the yellow, in that they were really dry and didn't mix, and I hoped they would kind of dissolve into the silicone, which they did, but sadly not enough, so I was left with huge chunks of the red and yellow. So then I just took my own mica powders, which I know will work. Now you can't use any type of watery based ink or alcohol ink, because that will most likely interfere with the curing process of the silicone, which I know because I did some silicone molds before. Now, after I was finished mixing the first cup, as you have seen, I've separated them into now 3 different cups, and I've chosen to color them each separately. That way I hope to get some really cool effects with the colors blending. Now they say it's bubble free, but I'm still trying to do preventative measures for getting bubbles, so I'm raising my cup really high so that I have a really thin stream of silicone getting into the forms, because that helps the silicone float in every nook and cranny and helps pop the air bubbles on the way down. And as you may notice, I had to mix a second batch. I'm not quite sure how much it was. I can't remember in time of recording this voiceover, but I think it might have been around 80 to 100 grams more. And for this to cure, it didn't actually take like 1 to 2 hours. It took like over a full day, which is really sad since I hoped it was faster curing, because they mentioned it on their bottle. And here you can really see the chunks of color. And I also had some light flashing, which I could just rip off, so that was no issue at all in the end. Now the thing I love about silicone is how easy the cleanup is. And sadly I got some silicone on my silica mat and it kind of reacted, so now I have a strange bump there, which doesn't really bother me. It's just a little sad that I didn't know that beforehand. Now that we have our molds, let's make some projects. And I'm mixing up some white UV resin, and I'm using some clear in the top of the mountain and pouring the white in at the bottom, and I'm mixing the two to make like a cloudy effect. Next up I'm putting the gate in, and then I'm doing a next layer of the cloudy effect. I made the mountain a bluish grey, and I decided to make the circle a moon, so later on I will use some glitter to make it shiny. And I'm working in lots of layers with this UV resin to make sure it's not warping too much, because it's pretty warm inside my room right now. Now the next mold I'm making is the sakura flower, and I start off by putting some clear resin in the rim and curing that, and then I'm adding some glitter and some color shift pigment on top of that to fill up the rim. And then I'm just adding a butterfly with some clear UV resin and top that off with some purple UV resin. And lastly I decided to make the wind chimes, so I set the flowers in some clear resin for the dongle. I cured it, and then I use white resin around the border for the top thing, and also fill it up a little bit where I put the flowers. And then I decided to add some decorations with clear resin and fill it up with some light blue and pink. So I did another charm off camera, and here are the results after letting them sit under my UV light for quite some time. I think that my designs turned out really pretty, but sadly with the molds I can see where they joined all the acrylic parts, and I can really see all the scratches and dents the blank set. Which speaks for the silicone, because that means it's great for mold making for every kind of detailed stuff, but it's sad that it could have been prevented by just providing single bags for the blanks. I decided to finish off the wind chime, and I'm just drilling some holes in the top and bottom for hanging the dongle and also filling it with the shaker oil. And then I'm using some clay decorations to fill it in, and I also use some iridescent glitter. Now, I don't personally like to use UV resin to join the shaker and the film, because I find that it might run into the shaker and stick the embeds together, so I'm just using some glue. Now, when that's finished hardening, I dome it off like normal with UV resin, and then I fill it with some shaker oil I got from a different Sophie and Toffee box. After that, I put in the hooks and add a little chain for the dongle, and then we're finished. And here's the final result of this wind chime. Now, overall, I really like the projects in this box and the idea behind it, and I really love the blanks they provided, and I also like the idea of those plastic pieces for making the silicone molds. That being said, I'm kind of disappointed in how much the blanks were scratched and not really properly fused together, so you can see all of the lines. And I'm also sad that my colorant dried out, which I don't know if it is because of the shipping time and how warm it is outside, but since it was sealed under the pots, it should have probably lasted a little bit longer. And I was also a bit disappointed in the curing time, since they said on the bottles that you should let it sit at least 1 to 2 hours or overnight, which overnight for me is like 8 to 9 hours. But when I checked in on that, it was completely sticky and only started to cure at that time, so I had to wait over 24 hours for it to properly harden. But after that, doing the project was a lot of fun, and I liked that they included the shaker film with the shapes of the items to make it easier to cut it out. And I really loved the embeds they gave us, although I don't know what they say because I can't read them, to be honest, which I would have loved to see in translation, but I don't know if there is one in the booklet since I didn't receive it, sadly, which can happen, and I hope they will send me a digital version since I wrote to them. Anyways, that's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed seeing me make these projects and this video, and if you do, feel free to leave a like and a comment down below. And I hope you're having a great day. Bye!